Everyone knows that unexplainable it factor, that smile that lights up a room, that wow. Well, it doesn't happen by itself. There's chemistry behind the charisma. Colgate Optic White Pro Series toothpaste removes 15 years of deep-set stains when you brush twice daily for 2 weeks. How? The clinically proven formula is powered by Colgate's hydrogen peroxide complex. It works at the molecular level to gently dissolve stains deep within the enamel where your brush can't reach. It's proof that daily routine can be remarkable. That's the science of wow. Colgate Optic White.
Membership means more with American Express Business Gold. Earn 4 times membership rewards points in your top 2 eligible spending categories every month, including eligible U.S. advertising purchases and select media, and U.S. purchases at restaurants, including takeout and delivery. What are you waiting for? Get the card that flexes with your spending every month. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
K-pop demon hunters Haja Boy's breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Welcome to Academia Unlocked, a special series from BookTok for BookTok with Jack and Amy, where we take one classic work and explore it through a 4-part literary journey, moving from understanding the text to deep analysis to cultural interpretation and finally to collective reader meaning.
This is Jack.
And I'm Amy.
Longtime friends, readers, and co-host, and between the two of us, we have over 13 years of academic literary training, including both bachelor's degrees in creative writing, as well as master's degrees. Our goal with this series is to bring academic literary level discussion into a space that feels accessible, thoughtful, and genuinely curious, without losing the depth that makes these works so enduring.
Academia Unlocked isn't just about a book. It's about learning how to read, interpret, and question it in new ways. Think of this series as stepping into a guided seminar where we explore not only what a story says, but how and why it continues to resonate across time. Each book is broken into 4 episodes. We break down the book into 4 episodes, each building on the last.
We are currently discussing Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Last week we discussed Pride and Prejudice in an AP high school English class level, where we focused on literacy. This week, we are approaching this novel with an advanced analysis like you would in a college seminar. Alrighty, we're trying a different structure. You guys, this is still a new series, okay? We're still figuring it out, but go with us here. So last week, we asked you to see Pride and Prejudice differently. We said, hey, what if we stop thinking of this as a romance and start thinking of it as a novel about how intelligent people convince themselves that they're right, aka they have pride and prejudice?
This week, we're going to go deeper. Knowing what a novel is about is one thing. Knowing how to pull it apart, layer by layer, and explain why it works the way it does, that's college-level literary analysis, and that's what we're going to do today.
We're going to hand you the actual tools scholars use. We be the scholars, not to make the book harder, but to make it richer. So just a little, warming you up intro before we dive into segment 1. Let's start with a question that sounds simple, but is not simple. What is Pride and Prejudice actually about? In episode 1, like we said, it's not a primary romance. It's about misreading people, situations, yourself, and about how smart people form confident, completely wrong conclusions. But today, we want to push that even farther, because Austen doesn't just write characters who misjudge each other. She wrote a novel that causes the reader to misjudge alongside her, and her being Elizabeth. Like, we are equally as guilty as Elizabeth in our first, second, third, and fourth rereads. I'll follow that girl wherever she goes. Every time I'm like, you want us to hate Darcy? Girl, I am with you. He called you ugly, unforgivable.
You're witty? I believe you.
Wickham? Love him.
Now, let's start by introducing a term you may or may not be familiar with, and that term is epistemology. So this comes from the Greek episteme. I don't know how to speak Greek, so that was terrible. Episteme, Episteme, which means,
ancient Greek, then let us know.
Yeah, let us know how we pronounce that. So what it means is knowledge, and epistemology is the study of how we know what we know. Now, when we apply that to fiction, what we're looking at is how do characters form beliefs, and how does narrative structure control what readers accept as truth? Now, in a way, Pride and Prejudice is Jane Austen running an epistemological experiment on the reader, not just the characters. Now, you might think, oh yeah, Elizabeth is the test subject because she's the main character. But really, we as readers are also the test subjects. To give you an example, let's look at the Meryton Assembly scene early on in the book, which is the first time we meet Darcy. Now, Darcy is introduced initially as a fine, noble gentleman with £10,000 a year. That is instantly positive. Everybody is a tittering.
I know. A tittering. They're all excited.
Because they're like, ooh.
The tits be tittering. And they even mention how tall he is too. And it's like,
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. He's handsome. He's dark. He's broody. He's tall. But then we get his comment about Elizabeth, which is, she's tolerable but not handsome enough to tempt me. And instantly things change. Everybody in the room turns, Elizabeth turns, and we, as the reader, you offended our girl, we turn too.
We literally just said that I will follow Elizabeth till the ends of the earth. She's like a best friend. You tell me who to hate, I'll hate them.
Exactly.
I'll hate them right there with you.
And it's only one line that changes our perception and dictates what our deception is for several chapters. What Jane Austen effectively achieves is showing us as readers how quickly one piece of social information rewrites an entire judgment. I'm guilty of this in real life. I understand.
I mean, that one line makes it so that not only is Elizabeth susceptible to Wickham's, oh, Darcy is so horrible because, here's my horrible childhood. And, not only is Elizabeth falling for it, but so are we, the reader. And she even has Jane say, hey, that seems like a lot of personal info he's sharing. And we and Elizabeth are like, shh, Jane, shh. You're not listening to the gossip.
It supports our beliefs, so it's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is funny because as quick-witted as Elizabeth is to almost kind of have the inside joke that no one knows what's going on, and she's smarter than everyone else, Jane Austen's doing the same thing to us.
Yeah.
Where she's smarter than us and we don't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So this shifts from a high school read to a college read. In high school, think of it as Darcy is rude, conflict is established. It's in high school you learn the fundamentals of a story. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of this is what you're getting, right? He is rude, there is conflict, this conflict will be resolved. There is a climax, beginning, middle, end. It gives you the base of everything. I don't want to downplay, this is the high school level because you cannot have the college analysis if you don't understand having a basis. So this is not poo-pooing upon high school level. But in an advanced reading, you then have to ask yourself, why did Austen build the scene so that I, the reader, also formed a snap judgment based on an overheard comment at a party? What was she doing with that? And what does it say that I did exactly what everyone in that room did?
Right. And as we kind of alluded to in last week's episode, everything is about social commentary in a way. It's about classism. It's about judging a book by its cover, essentially. And in a lot of ways, Jane Austen calls us out for being like everybody else, following society in this instance. Now, that shift that Jack just discussed from asking what happened to asking why the narrative or why the story is built this way, that's the foundation of everything we're going to do in this episode. So we've talked a lot in the past about unreliable narrators. If you've listened to our analysis seasons, we talk about unreliable narrators all the time. Well, there's another specific technical tool that we're going to introduce that Austen uses in Pride and Prejudice that helps the story and helps Austen achieve what she's hoping to achieve here, which is convince us of a lie, essentially. And the tool is called free indirect discourse, and it's built into the grammar and the prose of the narration. So what is free indirect discourse? It's a narrative technique where a third-person narrator, which is what we have in Pride and Prejudice, subtly adopts a character's voice and perspective without ever saying, quote-unquote, she thought or she felt. The narrator appears objective, appears to be telling factual truth, but is actually channeling a character's biased point of view. You might be, as a reader, convinced that you're getting neutral information, but you're not. And you can tell that just in how witty the narration of Pride and Prejudice is, that we are, in fact, getting, most of the time, Elizabeth's point of view.
I think it's easier for readers to forget the unreliability of a character when it's in third person. Mm-hmm. I think when it's in first person, the reader, puts ourselves in that moment and, we might say, well, I wouldn't do that, or I would have said something differently, right? Because the whole entire structure is I said, I felt, right? Mm-hmm. Versus third person, the narrator's telling us what's going on. And we don't question that narrator as much. We take that narrator at their word.
Right, because in a way, they're in a position of authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have authority over the story and what information is given to us. So we trust the information as it's presented.
Now, we already mentioned an example of this, but we're going to continue to examine this example, and that is Wickham's introduction. And it is perfection. Quote, Mr. Wickham had all the best parts of beauty, a fine countenance, a good figure, and a very pleasing address. It's like he's nice, he's hot, and he's friendly. It's like, I love the way it's described. All the best parts of beauty, because there could be shallow, it could be vain. It's like we've already established that Darcy's handsome and that he has all the quote unquote bad parts of beauty where he's egotistical, he's proud. But Wickham, on the other hand, Wickham is great. He has all these wonderful qualities around him. And because it's stated like a fact, because that's how we are given this information, it's Elizabeth's perception. Because we're getting these facts, like we're getting it presented to us as a fact, we're taking it as a fact. Why are we getting it that way? It's because Elizabeth's perception of Wickham is wearing the costume essentially of the narration. So it's like the narration is giving us Elizabeth's thoughts without saying it's Elizabeth's thoughts. It's like a Trojan horse, really.
Right, exactly. It's not objective truth. It is subjective truth. But the way it's presented might convince us otherwise, might convince us that it is in fact objective.
Now, let's go back to Darcy and see the same Elizabeth-colored lens. Quote, his manners gave a disgust which turned the tide of his popularity, for he was discovered to be proud, to be above his company and above being pleased. Not only is this very much from Elizabeth's point of view, but already she kind of has this like, well, everyone also agrees with me. No one likes him. Turns the tide of his popularity, for he was discovered to be proud. So which implies that everyone in town has the same perception. And, everyone in town loves Elizabeth. Like, she's a beauty, she's witty, and there's kind of like this proud element where it's like, oh, you want to be this way? Well, guess what? No one likes you. No one wants you here. You don't even go here. Everyone here likes me. But really, the word discovered implies uncovered facts, right? You discover truths. You discovered archaeology, right? It's implying that facts were what you discover archaeology. You discover bones, dinosaur bones. But basically, discovering implies uncovered facts, and it's social prejudice. It's Elizabeth's prejudice against Darcy that is dressed as discovery, right? So it's Elizabeth being like, he is such a dick, but like, oh my God, I found out the truth. It confirms that he is such a dick.
Now that's the double irony of Pride and Prejudice. It's not that Darcy is both proud and prejudiced. It is the fact that Elizabeth is also proud and prejudiced. And really, what is Elizabeth's pride? It's the fact that she is confident she is right, that she can judge a person's character and always be right. And she's blind to the fact that she's wearing these goggles, essentially, through which she views the world. Now, this becomes most obvious at the middle point of the novel. After Elizabeth reads Darcy's letter, the one about, this is what Wickham did to my sister, etc., it dismantles everything Elizabeth thought she knew. In the process of that, Elizabeth says to herself, quote, "Till this moment, I never knew myself." Now, no, she doesn't say, "I never knew Darcy." She doesn't say, "I never knew Wickham." She says, "I never knew myself." And what she means by that is she never knew how blind she was to her own prejudice, to her own ego, and the confidence with which she views the world.
I do love that moment where it is just like, it's a big old piece of humble pie for her. And the fact that she does take it more on herself and it shows ownership, respect the hell out of that.
Yeah. Darcy's letter ultimately is a structural reset of the entire novel. The first half of the novel before the letter is Elizabeth's proud goggles that we're wearing and through which we get the narration. When the letter happens and Elizabeth is forced to reevaluate her knowledge, and we as readers are forced to reevaluate Elizabeth's interpretation of everything, we now see the rest of the novel through clearer lenses, through what might be more objective, not fully objective, but less inclined to have an opinion, less biased.
Yeah. It definitely sets you up for, like Elizabeth was really judging Charlotte when she decided to marry Mr. Collins, and then she comes to their home and she's still like, oh my God, like she has to live with this idiot. But then this happens and suddenly you kind of have her becoming a little bit more accepting of like, wow, maybe Charlotte was onto something. Maybe she knew something that I don't know.
Yeah. And in the process, what happens, or what we should learn, is that anytime we form an opinion about a character, we have to stop and ask, whose perception am I seeing this character through which I am seeing this character? Yep. Is the narrator telling me facts, or is the narrator telling me opinions?
Yep. I don't know if we told you we were in segment 2, but we were.
Everyone breathe. We'll be right back.
This show is sponsored by Liquid IV.
When I think of spring break, I think of Jack and I senior year Las Vegas. You know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what doesn't stay in Vegas is the hydration our body needs no matter what.
If there's anything that I needed from that trip, it's Liquid IV. And now that I'm older, I really need Liquid IV after going out. I drink Liquid IV's sugar-free hydration multiplier all the time. I'm not even exaggerating.
Liquid IV's hydration multiplier hydrates me better than water alone.
If you're going to Coachella or any music festival, this is the perfect thing to put in your purse because only one stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates faster than water alone. It's powered by LIV Hydroscience and an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration.
Compared to water, Liquid IV delivers longer lasting hydration and retains hydration for up to 4 hours. It's backed by a scientific advisory board with world-renowned researchers to conduct clinical research trials.
And for our vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free girlies, this is perfect for you.
It's always non-GMO and has delicious sugar-free options like mandarin orange, rainbow sherbet, my favorite, mango pineapple, and more.
Soak up unforgettable memories with on-the-go hydration from Liquid IV. Tear pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first purchase with code BookTok at checkout.
That's 20% off your first purchase with code BookTalk, BOOKTALK, at liquidiv.com.
And now we're in segment 3.
Do we need to say segments?
In case people want to know. In case they want to know.
Okay.
I mean, I'm only keeping it in because one day we might want to double down on it. And one day we might want to abandon it completely.
We'll see. This is a process.
This is an absolute process. One of the markers of sophisticated literary reading is noticing how a writer uses physical space to do psychological work. We talk a lot about this in our other series where we deep dive into SJM's works and A Court of Thorns and Roses and Throne of Glass and all of it. But in Pride and Prejudice, Austen is deliberate about where scenes happen, and locations are not just backdrops. They're arguments. They're trying to get a point across to you, the reader. So let's take you through 4 primary spaces. The first one, the Meryton Assembly. So the space is pure performance, right? Everyone is evaluated in real time because that's the first ball that we're seeing everyone. That's where we meet Darcy and Bingley. And it's just, a big ol' gossip. It's the mall, like it's you going into a bar and doing a lap. Like it's everywhere that you could possibly be. It's a party. That's where everyone wants to go.
It's your middle school dance.
I know, right? I mean, I wish we had balls like this just to go. I mean, the beauty of it is yes, everyone here knows each other because it's kind of a smaller town, but this is the place that you go to get to know everyone, right? It's kind of nice. Oh, actually, it's nice to think that when you move into a neighborhood, I mean, granted, if you were of a certain status and class, but if you moved into a neighborhood, you could go to one of these assemblies and get to meet people there, essentially. Yeah. We don't have that.
No, we don't.
No. So reputation, as I think we talked a bit last week, reputation is currency here. Judgment happens at a speed. If Darcy had reputation and everyone was like, oh my God, he's so rich. And then he was a dick. And then they're like, oh my God, he sucks. And the tolerable comment lands in the most public, unforgiving possible environment. Would that have hit as hard as it did if it wasn't at this assembly? If he had casually just said that and she heard it in the garden, would it have hurt Elizabeth and really the reader as much? So Meryton essentially equals the danger of public interpretation, right? Perception of an individual becomes consensus before anyone examines evidence. Maybe I take it back. Maybe I don't want to go to one of these assemblies because you are signing yourself up to be judged harshly.
Right. It's like, oh, you slipped and fell on your face. No one cares that there was some water on the ground. You're now a klutz forever.
Yep.
How embarrassing.
God forbid anyone actually fell and slipped. That would be... You'd be ruined forever.
Seriously. And now my marriage prospects are ruined.
Anything. You sneezed wrong and your marriage prospects were ruined.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that sounds like a terrible environment.
It's not like my marriage prospects are all that great right now, so.
I'm
spiraling.
What? It doesn't help that you live in LA.
I know.
There's no options here.
I changed my location to London just because I needed to feel something. And I am just such a fucking hot commodity anywhere else. And then I changed my location to New York because we're going to New York. And I was like, oh, these men are gross. So no offense, New York men, but it wasn't looking hot. And I don't mean looks wise. I mean attitude wise.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rooftop bars in New York. And it's hard for me not to judge a rooftop bar.
I'm excited.
I know. Well, I mean, we can go to a rooftop bar, but a guy on Hinge who has a bunch of photos of him on rooftop bars, I'm like, ew, go to the ground floor. Because I'm judgy, because it's Meryton. Hinge is the Meryton Assembly.
It's true.
I'm the problem.
You didn't even stop to get to know him.
There goes my soulmate. May we run into each other at the rooftop bar while we're in New York.
Yeah, the universe will teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
You're like, this is exactly where you're going to find your soulmate. All right. Environment number 2, Netherfield Park. It is more domestic. It is more private, right? At least until the Netherfield Ball. This is a slower paced environment where Darcy and Elizabeth see more honest versions of each other. We see more honest versions of them. Elizabeth comes specifically to nurse Jane, who's fallen ill. While there, she's observed by Darcy. She's able to engage in real conversation with Darcy. And that's why, in this non-public setting, Darcy begins to have a difference of opinion. Quote, he began to feel the danger of paying Elizabeth too much attention. Now, why is this dangerous? He's still prejudiced in terms of class, right? He's still like, oh, this woman is still below me, but I like her. that's a problem. So what we're seeing in Netherfield, even though as a home, is where more honest perception can now begin to override social performance and what we saw at the Meryton Assembly.
It is funny because this is really where Darcy gets to know Elizabeth more and where he starts to really become attracted to her. And the perception that he has on her shifts. The perception that she has on him just kind of doubles down. Now, what I will say is that when you go through and read the book again, guys, Darcy thinks that he's flirting with Elizabeth. Like, just keep that in mind. He thinks that they are flirting. He thinks that she is into it. And that's one of my favorite things to do during a reread is to reread it and knowing in these scenes, he's like, we are so flirting right now. We are going back and forth. She loves me just as much.
We have great banter.
Yeah.
And really, she's just being herself.
And trying to put him down even more.
Yeah.
Location number 3, Rosings Park. Inherently, this is power on full display. This is Lady Catherine de Bourgh's home. And most importantly, it's shown to be very hollow, very empty. It's not filled with anything interesting, it's all for show. Lady Catherine wields Rosings' grandeur as though it confers, it's like, yes, this is absolute confirmation of my own moral authority. And, if you think about it, up to now, and maybe some even leading up to this moment, or actually, no, still at this time, people thought that the king was the king because he was appointed by God. And that doesn't just go to the king. It goes into, well, I am this status because this has been appointed to me by God. Like, I am here because it is given to me. And it's like they half reached the truth. You're like, yeah, you're right. It was given to you. Not as a blessing. It is a blessing. That's called privilege. It's way before their time to understand privilege. But when we say it's a moral authority, it is a moral authority because Lady Catherine believes that she is absolutely superior, and Rosings shows that. Elizabeth, though, is the first character who simply refuses to be intimidated by this space. Quote, "He is a gentleman. I am a gentleman's daughter. So far we are equal." So that is when Elizabeth and Lady Catherine are going head to head at the end of the book. And Lady Catherine is like, you are inferior to him. You don't deserve him. And Elizabeth's like, nah, I am a gentleman's daughter. So this is a radical claim because Elizabeth is asserting that she too has that moral and intellectual equality. Even if it's not financial, she belongs there just as much as any other person within their status. So Rosings essentially equals a space where class ideology as a moral authority gets absolutely directly challenged. And while Elizabeth is at Rosings, she's constantly kind of poking fun of it in her head.
Right. Like the time when they come back from Rosings and Charlotte's sister's like, oh, I have to repack everything because Lady Catherine said this is the right way to pack. No, right? Yeah. But people who view themselves not necessarily as lower class, but less chosen, less not noble, view Lady Catherine and people of her stature as knowing more, as being intellectually smarter, even though that's not necessarily true.
I also love the contrast where at the end of the book we have Elizabeth who's going head to head saying, I am equal to you, versus when she was at Rosings and saying, yeah, I probably should play the piano more. And Lady Catherine was like, you can go to the servants' quarter. No, you won't bother any of us there. And there's a lot of subtext there where Elizabeth is kind of like, okay, thank you. Very much like eye rolling it. And you can also get the subtext that Darcy's kind of a little mortified of like, oh God, I can't believe my aunt just said that because that's so rude. And then you have the contrast where at the end she's just willing to fight and say, no, we're equal.
Yeah, which I love because she has earned in some ways the right to challenge Lady Catherine.
Yeah.
Where once she might have said it proudly, right, with pride, with fake moral authority, by the end Elizabeth can say it honestly.
Yeah.
Because she understands who Darcy is and who she is.
Yep. And we all know where the fourth place is going to be.
Fourth place, Pemberley. Now, Symbolically, this is the most complex space in the novel, as you might guess, because Elizabeth's emotions, her feelings about all of this is very complex at this point. Elizabeth doesn't want to go to Pemberley because she's afraid of encountering Darcy, but then she's told, no, he's not there. So she goes as a tourist. She goes as a visitor. When she sees the place, she's so pleased with it. Unlike Rosings, which is ostentatious, quote, she had never seen a place for which nature had done more, or where natural beauty had been so little counteracted by an awkward taste. One of the things she thinks when she walks into Pemberley, it's homey without being gaudy, right? And that surprises her because she's been to Rosings. What surprises her even further, and what surprises her aunt and uncle, is the housekeeper describing Darcy as kind and generous, which we learn is consistent with his private character versus the public image we saw at the beginning of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth jokingly says to herself, to be mistress of Pemberley might be something. But she's not like saying that because she's like, oh wow, look at all that I could have. Really, at the end of the day, what does Pemberley symbolize?
Represent Darcy.
Right. What does it represent? It represents Darcy. That there's a natural beauty in his honesty, in his forthrightness, that is not discolored by a fake moral authority like what Catherine de Bourgh has. That is not distorted by vanity. In a lot of ways, how Elizabeth views the state is essentially how she will come to view Darcy, which is what you see on the surface does not reflect what is underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that we should get from this is the symbolism of how Elizabeth is coming to understand Darcy, in the sense that just as Pemberley has depth of character in its trappings, in its grounds, so too does Darcy. Darcy is complex. Yeah, that's what I got.
I mean, like if Darcy equals the house, then what does the house tell us about Darcy?
Right.
You know, it's this beautiful, grand thing on the outside, but it's actually very tasteful on the inside. It has a lot of like servants that are super loyal, comfortable. Yeah. So it is fun when you start to kind of see like what do the two equal.
Yeah.
Bookmark this. We'll be right back. Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months, plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes. That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use.
Now, moving into segment 4, we're going to discuss 4 different literary lenses. Again, if you like literary lenses, go check our content where we discuss SJM's writing with different literary lenses. So, a text does not have one meaning. It has different meanings depending on the framework on which you view the text, aka a lens. So it's like glasses, like you have rose tinted glasses and then you have blue tinted glasses, and you just have different ways of viewing the text. And each lens asks different questions and reveals something that the other can't see. One of the things that we learned in college is that like a good piece of writing, you'll be able to interpret it through multiple different lenses. So I always think about that when I'm reading. And we're putting Pride and Prejudice through 4 lenses today, which of course it would be 4 because it's a classic masterpiece. And Austen wrote 1 novel, and yet you can view it through so many different lenses, and people have been viewing this wonderful book in different lenses for over 200 years.
And they write many, many adaptations and continuations, and
not just adaptations, but like papers in, within the larger academia.
In an odd turn of events, I'm going to start with the feminist lens. Jack and I are doing a little swapperoo here. So when we look at this book through the feminist lens, one of the core questions we probably find ourselves asking is, how does this text represent women? And what do the constraints on female characters reveal? Because there are constraints just inherently due to society. On the surface, Elizabeth's character is a feminist character, right? She's smart, she's witty, she refuses marriage to Mr. Collins, won't get pushed around by her mom, she talks back to people. But actually, critics or, scholars who look at this book through a feminist lens have different opinions about what's going on. One such being that Elizabeth purely rebels within the frame of the marriage market, right? She's not rebellious in any other way per se. She actually does have class, right? Darcy admires her for the class she has, which her family doesn't, but she's rebellious when it comes to the men that are being presented to her for marriage. She does not accept or come to the conclusion that she could not marry, right? Yeah. That would be the feminist thing. Instead, she knows she does have to marry. She just happens to reject the first one put in front of her, which is Mr. Collins. The other thing that makes her not feminist...
I also want to flag, we're not saying that wanting to get married is not a feminist thing to do. No. That is absolutely not what we're saying. We're just kind of like, this is what scholars would say. If you want to look at it through a feminist lens and you want to take that approach, then by all means. You can also equally argue why she is an absolute feminist queen, but we're just reciting what has been said.
Yeah, we're giving you examples of what others might say. So another thing that Elizabeth doesn't do that might make her more of a feminist character, she's smart, but she does nothing about her intellect, or she doesn't use her intellect to make money, right? The whole issue, the whole need for marriage is about money. There are more ways to make a living other than being married, but she doesn't do those things. And ultimately, this book is still about marriage at the end of the day. It is structurally, it does not end until Elizabeth is married. Therefore, is it arguably a truly feminist book? Quote unquote feminist. You can argue, though, there is a feminist character in Pride and Prejudice, and that is Charlotte Lucas. And what do I mean by that? Because she does get married to Mr. Collins. It is how she views marriage that is different from everybody else, because Jane, Elizabeth, they ultimately want to marry for love. They don't necessarily care about money. Money's a perk. Charlotte doesn't care about love. She says to Elizabeth, quote, "I'm not romantic, I never was. I ask only a comfortable home. And considering Mr. Collins's character, connections, and situation in life, I am convinced that my chance of happiness with him is as good as most people can boast on entering the marriage state." Remember, Charlotte is like 27, 28. She's not foolish, right? Love hasn't come around. She's not waiting for love to come around. She's making a rational choice so that she is not a burden on her family.
And Elizabeth never asks that of what happens. Like, Elizabeth never says, okay, now what? Do you know what I mean? Like, she never has this moment of how many men is she going to refuse? What's the date that she's going to realize, shit, I need to do something? There's never a continuation of a thought on her future.
Right. Right. And from a feminist lens, what we should be asking are, not necessarily the reasons for why someone's getting married, but why is the system dictating what is best for these women, right? The system dictates that Charlotte cannot be alone. She cannot be a quote unquote spinster. I think she's probably gay. She probably was in love with Elizabeth. And yet the system forces her into marriage so that she's not a burden, so that she doesn't shame her family.
Yeah. But that's just one way to view it. If you want to continue to mix things up, because Amy normally talks about the Marxist lens, I'm going to talk about it. And when you hear Marxist, you might be like, Karl Marx? And the answer is yes. However, it's essentially talking about classism and power structure. So the core question ends up being, how does economic class shape perception, values, and moral judgment? The Bennet estate is entailed to Collins, and the daughters are going to inherit nothing. That immediately sets them up in a not a great situation. Like we're kind of saying, like, what's Elizabeth's plan? Like, you're not going to be able to just like live with your dad forever, because the second he dies, you're out. And marriage becomes this economic survival dressed as romantic preference. And Austen knows this herself. She builds, like, the whole novel is built around this concept, right? That, like, you have to get married. I think Charlotte is a very grounding character in the reality of that Charlotte is almost the usual and Elizabeth is, the exception to the rule.
Yep.
And even Darcy's proposal just really is a great moment to view it with a Marxist class criticism lens. Quote, "In vain have I struggled. It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you. While I was desirous of believing her indifferent, it had not been difficult to make myself easy under the inferiority of the Bennet family." This is such a great moment because he's just like insulting her family left and right. And, he says it himself. In vain I have struggled. It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. And it's so funny because I feel like readers are like, oh my God, that's so romantic. His feelings can't be repressed. But he's sitting there saying that he has battled against the social inferiority of her family. And that type of ideology is ingrained. It is embedded in this world and Darcy. Again, Lady Catherine is a reminder that class is moral contamination. Like, if you don't have it, if you're a classless family, you don't have any tact, like, you are going to be a blight onto this family. She even tells Elizabeth, quote, "Are the shades of Pemberley to be thus polluted?" The word polluted is so aggressive because lower class family, Elizabeth's family, is going to be then viewed as contaminated. Her bloodline is going to contaminate the Darcy name. And the Marxist question worth sitting with is Darcy's transformation genuine or a more refined class logic? Now regarding Elizabeth's character, now that he's regarding Elizabeth's character as worthy of his station. So at what point does he actually lower, quote unquote, lower his standards, or does Elizabeth's character elevate her station? Just something to think about. That's all this is, guys. These are just lenses. We're not here to answer questions. We're here to tell you them.
Right, because at the end of the day, Darcy still has strong opinions about Elizabeth's family. And Elizabeth is embarrassed still, even after they agree to marry each other, by her family. She explicitly says at one point that she does everything she can to keep her Aunt Phillips away from Mr. Darcy because she's annoying, essentially. The next lens we're going to jump into is the psychoanalytical lens. And the question we need to consider with this lens is, what unconscious drives, defenses, and projections shape the behavior beneath the social performance? So we talk a lot about projection in our other series. We talk a lot about projection in our analysis series. But for those of you who might be new, what do we mean? Projection is a psychological defense mechanism. And what happens is when a character or a person attributes their own uncomfortable feelings or their own thoughts onto the actions of somebody else. Instead of saying, I feel lesser than other people, they project that person thinks they're better than me, right? You don't recognize the negativity in yourself. You assume negativity in a different person. Your discomfort or your beliefs are externalized on someone else. So that's what we see with Elizabeth's early perception of Darcy. So, for example, when Elizabeth's pride is wounded because Darcy said she's not very pretty, it translates into the belief that Darcy is arrogant and therefore morally inferior to her because she doesn't judge people the way he judged her. Therefore, every interaction she has with Darcy up until the letter is filtered through that belief that she is morally better and he is arrogant. Another way we can look at this is Darcy's pride. He comes across as arrogant, but what it really is, and what he admits to, is he feels vulnerable. And so that's his defense mechanism. To be proud is to wear armor, essentially. Going back to the proposal example that Jack said earlier, this idea of loving Elizabeth, who is below his station, is a battle. Quote, "In vain have I struggled." It means his pride, his armor, has been penetrated. He is now weak and vulnerable and exposed to her, even though she's inferior. They both ultimately have to dismantle their defense mechanisms. He has to dismantle his pride. She has to dismantle her inferiority complex in order for them to be able to fall in love and have a happy ending. What Pride and Prejudice is really ultimately about through this lens, through the psychoanalytical lens, is not two people falling in love. It's two people learning to change their perception and their bias, because that is ultimately what prevented them from seeing other people clearly.
Yeah. And our final lens, the epistemological, this is the lens that's going to tie all of the other ones together. Epistemological criticism asks, how do the characters in this text form knowledge? What makes them believe what they believe? And what does the narrative structure reveal about the reliability of those processes? The entire architecture of this novel is an epistemological argument. I feel like I'm killing it saying that word.
Yeah, I was inside cheering for you.
I'm outside cheering. Austen builds a machine designed to make the readers misjudge alongside Elizabeth, and then reveals that machine, and we all just sit there and going, oh my god, it was a machine the whole time. Every major plot point is an act of epistemic correction. Darcy's letter doesn't just give Elizabeth new facts, it forces her to interrogate how she formed her previous opinions. Quote, "How despicable have I acted? I who have prided myself on my discernment. I who have valued myself on my abilities. How humiliating is this discovery?"
It hits because it's like, yeah, your discernment is trash.
Yep.
And she's right to like really feel that blow.
Yep.
And why is it that it hurts so much for Elizabeth? It's not that she's just embarrassed about her opinion about Wickham. She's questioning the foundation of her entire self and what she believes about herself. Her intelligence, which is a quality she really values of herself, was in fact the thing that enables her to be prejudiced. And that is what she's discovering. The thing she values most about herself is what has influenced her to develop the wrong understanding of people. Ultimately, because she is so confident in her ability to read other people, Elizabeth stopped reading people. She just started making assumptions.
Wow, what a moment, what an episode. Anyway, here's some ads.
Spring just hits different. One day, cold mud. The next, warm sunshine. But the hard-working men and women in Carhartt don't wait for the forecast to get to work. Patching roads, clearing trails, planting crops. Their hands turn this season's uncertainty into possibility. So get out there, spring into action. We've got you covered for whatever the season throws your way. Carhartt, made possible.
Right now at the Home Depot, shop Spring Black Friday savings and get up to 40% off, plus up to $500 off select appliances from top brands like Samsung. Get a fridge with zero clearance hinges, so the doors open fully even in tighter spaces in your kitchen. And laundry that saves you time, like an all-in-one washer-dryer that can run a full load in just 68 minutes. Shop Spring Black Friday savings, plus get free delivery on appliance purchases of $998 or more at the Home Depot. Offer valid April 9th through April 29th. U.S. only. See store online for details.
Now we're going to go into segment 5, where we're going to talk a little bit more about morality. And I want to step back from the theories to talk about why this story works. Because all the lenses in the world will not explain that Pride and Prejudice has been read and loved for over 200 years. We wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the absolute love that people have for this novel. That requires talking about essentially the narrative design and what we're going to call the moral architecture. So most romance plot are external obstacles, they're removed, there's a reunion, satisfaction from the obstacle removal, right? We're all happy, they win. Austen builds something structurally different, that the obstacle is internal. It is inside both of the protagonists. It's not like you have her father saying, no, you cannot marry this man. You know, it's like both of their heads up their own asses, essentially. Mm-hmm. And each character has a different internal obstacle that they have to go through that requires 2 independent acts of moral growth in order for this happy ending to happen.
So what is Darcy's internal obstacle? Darcy's arc, his progression, is about going from his position of social superiority, because that's what he believes, to being able to respect those who are different from him, essentially. And this is best demonstrated in his proposals. His first proposal is that he's condescending to love her, right? He is gracing her and promoting her through his love for her. And it's an honor for him to have affection for her because of how inferior her family is. That means when Elizabeth rejects Darcy, he has to confront himself and his character. Is he, in fact, socially superior? Or is his character, in fact, worthy of criticism? And he comes to discover that, yes, he did act just as terribly as he accuses other people of acting. Now, we see this best in Elizabeth's growing affection for Darcy. Quote, that he was really fond of them, that being the Gardners, Elizabeth doubted less than she had ever done before. She saw him now placed by their side, and what struck her was the eagerness of his countenance in listening to their conversation. The fact that Darcy expresses genuine attention and interest in the Gardners is important because their social class is a level that he once dismissed as being inferior to him. For him to genuinely be interested and for Elizabeth to see that is for us to recognize it's not about performance. He is not a performer, but he's also not condescending. He is developing authentic respect and regard for these people. And that demonstrates that moral change in him and overcoming his internal obstacle.
Now we're going to look at Elizabeth's arc. And I love her arc because it goes from intellectual confidence to intellectual humble pie. And I feel like I could make an argument as to why this makes it a feminist book, but because the transformation that Elizabeth goes through isn't because she falls in love with Darcy. Darcy's love is not what saves her, or rather her love for Darcy, right? Her growth and her arc comes from recognizing her intelligence was working against her. She was using her wit to confirm what she felt and not genuinely examining what's true. Again, we're coming back to that quote, till this moment I never knew myself. It's not just the consequence. Is it just, oh my God, I lost this hot guy who, may not love me again, aka Darcy. Her sister, Lydia, is ruined and has to enter a loveless, horrific marriage because Elizabeth didn't push it farther. You know what I mean? Like,
didn't
because
ask questions.
She didn't ask questions at the very beginning. She was fooled with everyone else. I mean, she didn't even go to her father saying, we shouldn't trust Wickham. It was more about like, hey, Lydia's kind of an idiot. But if she had not been so indulgent, Lydia, as everyone else, she was part of the structure that did not help Lydia's story. Now, going back to Elizabeth and Darcy, the structural design of Darcy's lessons and the fact that Elizabeth mirrors those lessons, these personal lessons that they have to go through in the story, but it's not identical. So Darcy has to deal with social superiority is not going to be a substitute for genuine worth, right? Just because you're socially superior does not mean that you are worth anything. Elizabeth.
Look at Lady Catherine.
Look at Lady Cats. Elizabeth, on the other hand, intellectual confidence is not the same as genuine perception. Darcy admits that he's a little awkward. He's got a touch of the tism. He doesn't do crowds. He gets overstimulated. And for Elizabeth, someone who's able to walk into a room confidently shows like they're a good person. That does not equal one another. And they approach the same lesson from opposite directions, which is really sweet. And we really have to remember that love in this novel is not the cause of moral growth. That is not what makes them grow morally. Instead, love ends up being the reward for it, which is really sweet, right? The union between the two of them is only possible because both Elizabeth and Darcy have become capable of honest, humble, and accurate perception. They have to humble themselves. They have to face their own, not demons, but their own issues and biases before they can come together.
And I love it when they're both having conversation with each other at the end. And they're like, don't talk to me about what happened in the past. I'm so ashamed. I can't remember it without being ashamed. And they're both like that.
Idiot. I was an idiot.
Yeah. And they're both trying to give each other credit, but they won't accept it because they're like, no, I acted terribly. I just love it.
I just can't wait until, they're like, Mommy, Daddy, how did you meet? And they're just like, we can't talk about it. It was, I like to imagine, I like to imagine with some distance, Elizabeth's like, well, Daddy called Mommy ugly. And then he'll be like, and Mommy was into your Uncle Wickham. And they'll be like, Uncle Wickham, he's in jail, right? So, yeah.
Now, moving into segment 6, why does this book still matter? Why do authors keep writing adaptations, myself included? Why do networks and studios keep making shows and movies that retell this story?
And why do I keep rereading this every single year?
I think what it comes down to is what we have been talking about since the beginning, which is epistemology. How do we know what we know? And I think that's more relevant than ever in a society of social media and news outlets that present news in a certain way depending on its political platform, right? Epistemology, how we make judgments, how we choose to accept subjective truths is not a Regency era problem. It's not an Elizabeth Bennet problem. It's a human problem. It's a problem we all experience in one way or another. And that's why we love this story so much, is because it ultimately is such a human experience.
It really is a human experience. It doesn't have, yes, there might be like some outlandish, crazy things of like, this crazy, hot, rich man comes and ends up loving you. And I'm not saying that's impossible, but like you have these like grander moments, but you also have these really grounding characters that is triggering because we see them everywhere. Like Wickham. Wickham is a great example. Wickham is a charismatic person who tells a compelling story, performs vulnerability, and is just very performative in the exact right moment. And they never add up, what they're saying. And I just want to say, who does that sound like? A certain orange president. I'm just saying. Shitty people don't end up where they are if they're not some level of charismatic.
Yeah, it's true. And like, I see this all the time at work. Yeah. And I'm sure all of us have seen it at work. I see it in a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. It doesn't just have to be romantic. It doesn't just have to be leadership.
Sorry, how many times have we had friends where like, no, this person's great. And then you were like, shit about that.
Yeah, they're not great.
Yeah. Because then, especially when it comes to like Wickham, you've already publicly vouched for Wickham, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
You've already gone to bat for them. And then you're just kind of like, oh, no. And even though Jane Austen wrote this in 1813, we've all been Wickhamed before.
Yeah. We've also been Elizabeth to Darcy, right? we've all misjudged someone who later on we're like, wait, this person's actually great.
Yeah.
And maybe I met them when they were having a bad day, but I judged them too quickly. I'm certainly guilty of that.
I'm sure I've done it. I know I've judged people too quickly. I just hope I don't know if I've ever came to the like, turns out they're great part.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember anybody off the top of my head that I've convinced you is great. And they were.
No.
All right. What Jane Austen gives us through Pride and Prejudice and what makes her a sophisticated writer that people keep going back to reading is a model for what it is to learn a lesson and to course correct, right?
Yep.
What Darcy and Elizabeth both do is very uncomfortable. They have to reassess themselves and be better, and they both do it. The fact that they're able to recognize what's wrong, what they've done wrong, and being humble enough to change is really admirable. And it's something I think we want for ourselves and we want for everyone, that if I'm accused of being wrong, that I'm capable of seeing it and that I'm capable of change.
Yep.
And that's what makes these characters so compelling.
Absolutely. And Elizabeth doesn't just recognize that she's wrong about Wickham and Darcy. She recognizes the deeper failure, and she's then willing to examine her own process of knowing and learning. Quote, "Vanity, not love, has been my folly." That is a quote that we do not give anywhere near as much credit. I think that's one of the best quotes of the book, that vanity, not love, but her ego, her investment in seeing herself as a perceptive individual makes her less perceptive. And that is so freaking true, even today for people.
Mm-hmm.
I love this book. I love everything about it. And I can't wait for us next week to talk about books and media, to talk about what it's going to look like, you know?
Yeah.
What we have going on. I hope, though, that this wasn't too crazy for anyone and that it made sense. And this is all that literature is, guys. Anyone can do it. It's like you just make shit up.
Don't tell that to any comparative literature instructor at school.
I will tell them to their face. Actually, I want my old professor to come on the podcast, so I probably shouldn't be shitting on comparative literature.
Probably not. Thank you for listening to this episode of Academia Unlocked with Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Next week, we will be discussing Pride and Prejudice in media, whether that be TV shows, movies, other
books,
adaptations,
other
etc.
books. Yep. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episodes. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or in a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle BookTalk for BookTalk. And don't forget to join us by subscribing to the Subtext Society Journal.substack.com to get more insights into the romantasy and romance world. Bye!
Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months, plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes.
That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use.
There's fishing, and then there's fishing. Out here, you're after dinner. Online, hackers are after your data. They'll bait you with fake emails, lookalike sites, anything to lure you in. But with Cisco Duo's end-to-end phishing-resistant access control, every login, every device, every user stays protected. Looks like no one's biting today. Cisco Duo. Phishing season is over. Learn more at duo.com.
Business owners, game day isn't just another shift. It's your biggest opportunity. What you show on your screens decides where fans stay. EverPass brings premium live sports together in one streaming platform built for businesses, so you can deliver the games your customers want without the hassle. Reliable, easy to manage, and designed for your venue. Make your place the one fans choose. Visit everpass.com to learn more.
Putting off replacing your window treatments because you think it's complicated? At Blinds.com, we spent 30 years proving it doesn't have to be. And right now, our Spring Black Friday sale makes it easier than ever. Whether you want to DIY it or have a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we've got you. Free samples, real design experts, and zero pressure. Just help when you need it. Shop up to 45% off site-wide. Huge savings on doorbusters, plus a free professional measure now during the Blinds.com Spring Black Friday sale. Rules and restrictions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.